Sometimes we wonder what life can bring. Sometimes it feels good and sometimes it stings. Sometimes we wonder just what we should do. Go see that witch doctor down the road. Tattoo. He calls it the sanctuary of enduring pain. Get you that needle magic, it help you keep sane. Ooh, Lord, sound like someone killing a cat. Anyway, sit on back and relax and let's see what old Murky Monday got going on this evening. Good evening, friends and family. It is I, your main motherfucker, Mr. Late Night Saturday Sleeping Church on Sunday, the sinister minister, Murky motherfucking Monday. Yeah, I'd like to welcome y'all to the sanctuary, Enduring Pain, here at the Dirt Road Tattoo. Yeah, I know ordinarily you kind of normally like to see my ugly face in person, but unfortunately at this time, ugly ass Murky Monday is a little extra ugly and can't necessarily show his face on camera. Lord, can I get a witness? Let me tell you, old Murky Monday had a wisdom tooth pulled out his head. Half old Murky Monday face broke. So, till then, we just gonna do this here. Alright. What we got here is we gonna do some Flash. You know what I mean? So, I know what I had been doing when it came time to be drawing stuff was that I was, drawing me. And I kind of realized after a couple, 2-3 times how boring I actually am. So, I decided that maybe it might be a little bit more in order to do things instead of it focusing in on my ugly ass, especially since I'm trying to keep y'all from seeing my ugly ass right now, to do something that is a little bit more, how should I say, according to the tattoo world. You know what I mean? So we're gonna draw some Flash for you. We're gonna paint some Flash today. Now, we're gonna go ahead and do this here, Black Panther and a rose. And if you were paying attention in the beginning, you'll see I sketched out a panther head, and then later I sketched out some roses, and then I put the two together, and I came up with the main design. And this is here. Now I transferred that to this paper here on this board, and then I taped it down, and we're gonna start painting. Now, there's some things I want to talk to you about when it comes to this whole Flash thing, and there's some things I want to talk to you about in this particular piece in particular. Okay? We're just going to keep it real. This is not any specific type of paper. In fact, this is just regular old mixed media paper. It's not watercolor paper, and I'm not using the very expensive watercolors. That the one at the bottom that has been most used, obviously, that one was not a cheap set. Got it from the art store. Not a cheap set, pretty good. Nice dense pigment. The one on top is a new set. I don't even know where it came from. I just happened to find it. In the other shed we got. As an artist, I have accumulated so many art supplies, and my wife, she's an artist, so she also accumulates a lot of art supplies, and so sometimes things just show up. And in this, I knew that I liked that pink and I wanted to use it, so that's where I decided I'm gonna pull that one out and mess around with it here and see if I can't get some some pink up in here. Today I'm doing a Panther, like I said. It's one of the most iconic Flash designs out there, so that's why I decided I was going to try to go ahead and do this. What I need you to understand is my mentality on Flash is evidence in this right here. See, when I first started doing tattoos, right, I came into the business having come out of the comic book business, right? So I spent on average 13 hours a day drawing comic book pages. So I was used to drawing, and I was used to drawing anything and everything that a writer would tell me to draw on their cartoon pages, you know, the comic pages and stuff. And you know, so you got to pay attention to everything, all the details, you know. And so when it came time for me to put that down and become a tattoo artist, I felt like I could draw anything. So whatever it is that you could imagine in your mind, I could draw it on paper probably better than you imagined it. You know what I mean? Because I was just so, you know, in tune with, you know, drawing all kinds of stuff. And so Flash was one of those things for me where I didn't have a whole lot of respect for it, right? And when I first started doing tattoos, Stephen Bishop, who is the lead singer and guitarist for a band called Thunder Horse, he taught me, you know, to draw Flash. You know, I traced Flash. You know, the first tattoos I ever did were Flash designs. You know what I mean? I certainly, the first tattoo I ever did was my own drawing, but it was a tribal design. So it's not like I was following, you know, a Flash design. You know, I did my own thing. But, you know, when the weekend showed up and the Air Force and the Army and the Marines came in to get their tattoos, well, you know, I was tattooing Flash all day, every day. You know what I mean? And so Flash was one of those things where, as an artist, I felt like it was a great starting point. You know what I mean? I did everything I could to change the Flash, to alter it, to make it so that it was unique to the person wearing it, you know? And over the years, that became ingrained in me to be a custom artist to such a degree that one day I was in the opportunity of being able to open my own shop. And I was adamant that I was not going to have Flash hanging on the walls. Adamant. In fact, I didn't even want to have Flash in the building. And so for the first year, there was none. But I ran into this problem that when people came into my shop, although they saw art on every wall, although, you know, they could see that I was a talented artist, they needed something to look at. They needed something to look at. They needed something to look at. I can't count how many times I heard people tell me, do you have anything to look at? And I would show them the photos of my tattoos that I did, you know, and I would tell them, I could draw whatever you want. Well, the problem was half of them didn't know what they wanted. And so then it began to sink into my mind the importance of Flash. Then it started to make sense. You see, when you have those people who what they want is a tattoo, well, that might be as far as people think it out, you know? And they go into a place that is set up to do tattoos, right? Now, I would say that there are a lot of people out there who might agree with me that you don't have to be an artist to do tattoos. Not at all. That's what Flash is all about. If you can follow a line, and if you can pick up the techniques on how to use the machine, well, you could tattoo Flash all day. That right there gave birth to the notion of doing tattoos in this country. That you can see the history of that in American traditional, which is basically what this panther head and rose is a representation of. It is the notion that these simple lines, if you can follow them and then color them in, that you can pretty much do any design on any tattoo shop, Flash wall, anywhere. And that was pretty much it. And so back in those days, right, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when I was coming up in the 70s, especially when I would go and see tattoo shops and stuff like that, all you saw was wall-to-wall Flash designs. That's it. And there was nothing custom. You didn't get anything custom. You know what I mean? You picked it and they pick it and stick it. That's it. You know what I mean? In fact, I remember some of the first inroads that I had with tattoo shops. They didn't even like the fact that I was an artist. Not at all. I think what it was is that Stephen Bishop is a bit of a rebel. You know what I mean? In a weird way. You know, coming from Beaumont, Texas, which is, if you know anything about Beaumont, Texas, to get to a point in life where he would teach me, a black motherfucker, how to do tattoos. You know what I mean? My history goes from him, Stephen Bishop, and the guy who taught him was a guy named Chuck from Beaumont. So if you know any history, if you know about Chuck's, that's who taught him. When he came to San Antonio, he did his first gig with a tattoo shop called FO. If you know anything about that, any of those people who are old school bandito types might know FO. But that's my lineage of the tattoo business when I got into it back in 1996. And like I said, I hated Flash. I hated it. I could draw whatever you wanted. I'm an artist, you know, and still today I can pretty much draw whatever you want, you know. But now Flash is so easy to come by. I mean, you can get Flash designs on your phone. You know what I mean? And like I said, there are traditional ways about doing this, spit wash type stuff. But I'm not really following any sort of traditions. In this situation right here, I'm pretty much just trying to be productive and do something artistic. You know what I mean? And not all the time do I have the right paper or the right, you know, watercolors, or there are people out there that say, well, you should only use certain types of ink, like Winsor Newtons, and, you know, you should only use like Arches paper, watercolor paper, and, you know, the traditional ways of doing things, certainly. But in this, you know, I'm not doing this for that. I'm doing this to stretch my elbows out and make, you know, some art. You know what I mean? That's what this is about. Now, I mean, so it doesn't even really bother me that, you know, the ink's not coming out great, or the washes aren't coming out how, you know, crisp or clean or whatever. I don't even have real ink. The ink that I'm using to do these lines right here is tattoo ink. You know what I mean? So I'm just using whatever I have. You know, the brush that I'm using is worn out and bent, so all my edges are kind of busted. You know, it's really, for me, it's just about doing the work, you know, just to get the art out there. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, in the future, when I feel like I want to do something that's crisp and clean, you know, and I really want to, you know, make it nice so that I can maybe try to sell it, sure. You know, I'll make everything perfect. But with me, I have the ability to just exercise, and then when it's game time, it's game time. You know what I mean? I don't really try to make everything perfect. You know what I mean? I think when you do that, then you make unforced errors sometimes, and it's hard to overcome those things. You know, I think when you just throw something up, to use a graffiti term like throw-ups. Man, I remember doing throw-ups, and it was just to throw some shit up there. They called it throw-up, like a vomit. You know what I mean? Like, blah. And then all of a sudden, now throw-ups are like an art form all to themselves, and there's a whole level of perfections to doing it. You know what I mean? And so it's that. This is really just an exercise. This is me just doing what I can do in the moment to put something out there, just to keep the art flowing. Now, I don't know if by next time I'll have something different, or if I'll, go out and get some arches. Man, I live out on a dirt road. I don't live real close to, Jerry's Artorama. That's an hour and a half drive to go to the art store. You know what I mean? And, I can get to Walmart in about 30 minutes, and I can go get some, all right, cheap stuff over there. You know what I mean? But, it is what it is. You get what you pay for. And art supplies are actually one of those things where, if you pay for quality supplies, you're going to get quality work. That's just what that is. But at the same time, if you are an artist, you should be able to take, as I take, whatever I have at hand and make the most of it, and push everything I can to make it a learning experience, and never put too much pressure on myself to try to be perfect in something that isn't, perfect in itself. You know what I mean? That way I can save my energy for when it does count, for when, I am working on something that I need to have my 100% focus, and I need to have my best tools and all of the right supplies to do it exactly perfect the way that it should be, But until such that time, I'm just going to drop some art as it comes out. You know what I mean? I hope you enjoy this Panther, and I enjoy doing it. I'll do some more Flash here, and I think that's what I'll do. I'm not going to draw my ugly mug for y'all no more. Y'all know what I look like, except for right now, my ugly mug is a little uglier. But, imagine what you imagine with my face, but then with like, shit on it, dookie ugly. But anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, tuning in. I'm still doing tattoos, so, hit me up, call me, and we can get y'all in here. Come visit with your boy, see me ugly in person. You know what I mean? Friends and family, I would like to thank you all for watching the show. I'll get another one out here to you directly as soon as I possibly can. But I would like to take this time to formally invite you, one and all, to come on out here to Dirt Road Tattoo, the sanctuary of doing pain. Come on out and get some needle magic and make you a better, more colorful person. Come visit with you, Minister Mercury Monday. Come spend some time and let me put the healing hands on you.